What's up everyone, John from ARTV. It's time for a review of the third studio album by the artist Janelle Monáe. The album is titled Dirty Computer, but more on that in just a minute. Over the past few years, I guess since 2013, she's been steadily gaining in both her critical and commercial success, and it all came to a high point as she started releasing singles from this album, Dirty Computer. This has been something that she's been assembling for a while now, but working with her close friend and collaborator Pynk, who passed away a few years back, it really interrupted the flow and progress of this album because, believe it or not, he was a big contributing factor here. And in fact, he's credited with writing the synth line for the track Make Me Feel, which is one of the best songs on the album and was one of the singles. Now, over the years, Janelle Monáe has steadily just kind of built up her fan base, which I believe she refers to as the Fandroids, possibly a reference to her debut album, which is called the ArcAndroid, but I can't say that I've been a huge follower over the years. I'm just kind of getting on the boat at this point, so forgive me if I'm wrong there. 2013's release, The Electric Lady, didn't exactly set the world on fire in terms of commercial success, but it got people buzzing, not just fans, but also the critics, which helped spread the word pretty quickly. And how does she follow that up? Well, she takes almost a 5-year gap in between albums, but she wasn't doing nothing during that time period. It's just that obviously she was affected by the death of her friend Pynk, and a lot of other musicians in the world were passing away, but she also wanted to take her time to be more comfortable with her own sexuality, to figure things out for herself, and then come back with a bold statement. And she does just that. She obviously did some acting during that time as well. She was in 2016's Best Picture Moonlight, and she did a fantastic job there. I really enjoyed that movie once I finally got a chance to watch it. I forgot that it was even her in that until people were talking about it when this album, Dirty Computer, came out. But I can really see how some time off did her some good to help figure herself out, who she was, what she wanted to put out there to the world, and Dirty Computer really seems like such a confident statement. There's a few songs that definitely give you details of the sadder moments, but overall, this record is a celebration of pride, of life, of accepting who she is. And she recently came out as pansexual, very happy that she's able to come out to the world and to her fans, listeners, people who had just been questioning and just kind of bombarding her with that question for years. I don't really see why that's the biggest deal. I mean, somebody's sexuality is nobody's business other than their own, but people are still gonna ask. If I had to describe the overall sound of Dirty Computer, I would say that it's somewhere between the modern, more synthetic world with some more modern production choices, and also somewhere in the backbone of funk music that's rooted in 70s, maybe even some 80s guitar lines. It feels very spry and nimble, but also super effective because you're gonna hear some skittering drums, you're also gonna hear some live drums, you're gonna hear some keyboards that might sound modern, you're gonna hear some that sound older, you're gonna see some interludes like Stevie's Dream that features some uncredited vocals from Mr. Stevie Wonder. This album inspired both legends old and new to work with her, and that's just incredible. Brian Wilson is on the title track, which is the opening cut, and his harmonies are instantly felt. Absolutely gorgeous track. And if you're wondering, Dirty Computer, what exactly is that? Well, I found an interview on Beats One where she actually explained it in detail. I'll go ahead and roll a clip.
We are CPUs, our brains. We're uploading, downloading, we're transmitting. You know, we are passing back and forth information. And with all computers, you got your bugs, you got your viruses, right? Are those negatives? Are those positives? Are those features or not?
I figured it would be best to let her explain that because I would probably butcher it, but overall I have to say that once I found that interview, it totally took the album into a different perspective. I was hearing it differently at that point because sure, I picked up on Dirty Computer and themes of things being like maybe centered around that, like I heard Random Access Memories dropped, obviously the title of a song, Take a Byte, BYTE, like storage space. Obviously I was able to get those references, but once I found out that she was going for this overall fact that humans are like computers, that really clicked with me, and you can totally feel that in both the music and the lyrical content, especially on this album. Once we get past the title track, which is the intro to the album, which features Brian Wilson of Beach Boys fame, the harmonies sound so good, Janelle sounds great there, we break into a more pop-lating moment, but still very funky, crazy, classic life. This one celebrates being young, black, wild, free, and Janelle is really expressing herself here. I love the melodies on this track and the fact that it's able to start off more as a song and then it breaks down into a rap. And another moment that does that I'm absolutely thrilled by is the track Chango Jane. That's right, the D is silent. With Chango Jane, the track is entirely rapped, and what I love there is the fact that there's references from the track before that are kind of parlayed into this next moment. And that track is called Screwed, and I don't have a ton of love for that one, to be quite honest. It's said over 30 times, the word screw or screwed, and I understand the metaphors there and the fact that they're not just talking about sex or getting screwed, it's talking about getting screwed over by the government. Still, it's not exactly something that I'm totally on board with. In fact, the vocals during the chorus kind of annoy me, but the idea that I like here flows throughout the album, and that's that there's callbacks to other moments here. And as Screwed keeps going, you can tell by the end of the track which our featured guest is going, and she kind of fades out, and then Chango Jane comes in. This track is entirely rapped, but we have elements from the previous track, so I think it's cool how she's able to combine the worlds. The sultry, sly burn on the guitar and the funky, warped bass that comes through on the synth line of Make Me Feel is truly fantastic. Another favorite of mine on this record, Dirty Computer. Janelle sounds so good here, and I love the fact that she's basically saying to this lover, don't make me spell it out. You know how I'm feeling, and that's just the way you make me feel. And then that snap along where the chorus and that flare of a guitar that just floats by in the chorus as well. It's such a strange hook in a way, but it absolutely does hit the spot just right. Then another one of my absolute favorites that does similar things for me, but feels maybe a little bit more synthetic because of like the program rolling drums. It's called I Like That. This moment has a little thing, oh me, oh me, oh me, oh my, which is so repetitive in a way, and I know people have heard me complain about repetition and stuff like that. That doesn't mean that it's not ever effective and that I don't always like hate it or anything like that. I don't hate this by any means. In fact, it's one of the most standout moments for me here, and I like that. Take a Bite really sways you into its funk groove and really builds an atmosphere as it continues to go on. And then I Got the Juice is a more bass-heavy track that isn't produced by Pharrell Williams, but still, it kind of has his touches on it because he is featured on the track. And while I feel his verse is kind of weak, I mean, like yellow like the pea, really? You're gonna break out that line on this track? It just doesn't fit for me, whatever. But anyways, I love the bass and the instrumental on the track. I guess that I don't pay attention to the lyrics as much on this one, but still, I have to admit that it's kind of catchy, kind of an odd choice, but still kind of a bop in an odd way. Another great thing about this record is the fact that it's able to change pace and gears several different times, and one of those moments that I really like is Pynk featuring Grimes. This one is definitely very sexual in its explorations, and the fact that she's unabashedly saying all of these things and these obvious metaphors and some that are a little bit more hidden, I suppose. And Grimes mainly does backing vocals here. My only complaint is that I was hoping that she would have like a full-on feature where she would take over the song, because I really have started to enjoy more of Grimes' music. But hey, I'll take what I can get here and hope for new music from her very, very soon. Anyways, this track is definitely a lot of fun for me just because of how kind of laid back it is, the guitar, and the little bit of programming. It feels very minimal, but still a very strong song somehow. Even though there's not like a ton of backbone there in terms of instrumental, its sparse electric feel is still pretty supercharged in a way. And then another moment that I have to call to mind is near the end of this record, the next to last track, which is called So Afraid. And I have to say, this is probably the most vulnerable moment that we have here from Janelle, and I like the fact that after an album of more celebrations, she's able to kind of in this last third of the record start to reflect a bit more. And this one kind of talks to her growing up, being a little bit more scared, and obviously noticing the color of her skin. That's something that she definitely deals with on this record, and she talks about these facts of when she was judged or somebody rated her a 6 and it hurt her feelings, but she always knew that she was the shit anyways. I love moments like that. And then on So Afraid, she just kind of breaks down a little bit, and then this track really does something special. There's like a key change there, and the way that it shifts into the chorus to begin with is fantastic, but once you really hear her soaring with that voice in the second half, it's absolutely euphoric. Some songs I don't feel like I'll come back to as much as others. The interludes are a kind of nice touch. I love Stevie's Dream, the guitar on that one, and the fact that Stevie Wonder is featured. Like I said, legends both old and new are featured all over this record, and their impact is definitely felt. Jane's Dream, it's okay. I can understand why it leads into Screwed, but still, I don't know that it serves as huge of a purpose as maybe something like Stevie's Dream does. And then there's a couple of other moments that I just don't care for as much. Don't Judge Me goes goes on for 6 minutes, and while I do like the vibe and the fact that her vocals are more restrained here, I just do feel like it overstays its welcome just a bit. And then on the track Americans, it gets a bit preachy for me. I understand the overall message of this album, and I'm by no means saying that she shouldn't say these things. It's just that this album in general, at times, just for me personally, it can feel a bit that way. And then on Americans, I feel like it kind of boxes everybody in and says that we do have this history, which is very true. It's a history of racism and a lot of other things. People are raised on superstitions, but the track does once again go on just a bit long for me, if that makes sense. And I like it, it's catchy enough, but overall I can't say I'm as interested. I was truly moved by many of the tracks on this album. A woman owning her sexuality, her race, her gender, everything else, standing up for rights. It was an amazing feat as she comes through on so many of these tracks with both catchiness and depth, which is a hard thing to balance. You don't want to get too over the top with the instrumentals to the fact where no one's paying attention to the lyrics, but you don't want to have your lyrics so numbed down that, you know, nobody's paying attention to anything else in the track. They're just listening to the instrumental. It's where she rides the line that she gets this album perfectly right, and she does that more often than not. For me personally, with Dirty Computer, the third studio album by Janelle Monáe, I'm giving this a strong 4 out of 5, and I highly recommend you guys go check this out. If you've heard it, let me know what you think, and if you haven't, there's a link to stream it down below. Please drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and yeah, that's all. Thank you so much for tuning into this review today. If you would like to support what I do here on the channel, then please tap the annotation over in the corner to support me on Patreon. If you would like to see a recent video I did on the channel right over here, a recent review, or if you would like to see another recent video right over here. Social media accounts can be found linked in the description down below, and other than that, I'll see you soon on ARTV.